In terms of the last conversation that you had with him, was there anything out of the ordinary during that conversation, or was it pretty normal?
It was fairly normal. He said that they were, going back up towards the Mali border. They were going to this little town called Tilawa. He was not happy about it. He thought it was a stupid mission. But, that was Brian. He was always pretty direct. It was stupid. But they had to go, and, yeah. So.
What was the last thing that he said to you?
He said that he loved me and he'd talk to me soon.
So then a few days later, the fateful day where you hear about it on the news first, basically, that something happened there.
Yeah.
At that point, was there an element of you just kind of knew that was the case, or were you still kind of hoping for the best, or what was your mentality like at that point?
I think I knew, but I was fighting for it not to be true.
Yeah.
My mother-in-law, actually, I'd been avoiding talking to her because by then I felt like it had built up to a point, especially with what Isaac had said, and then my last discussion with Brian, that until he called me again, I refused to call his mom. She and I were close, and we talked fairly often, especially when he was gone, and I refused to talk to her. Yeah. So she actually called me and said, "Hey, I just saw a news flash come across my phone, and it says that a team up near the Mali border was attacked and a few Americans were killed." And I instantly just said, "That was Brian's team. That's Brian. Brian's dead." And then it was, I think it surprised her, and she was like, "Oh no, we don't know that. I just thought I ought to let you know." And I was like, "No." Okay. And I tried to calm down and okay, you're right, because I didn't want to freak her out. And so I started making phone calls, but with each phone call, it became more obvious that Brian was probably one of the either injured or dead.
Yeah.
And yeah.
The depiction in terms of how you describe that fateful ringing of the doorbell or knock on the door with the chaplains and the guys in uniform is very reminiscent to me of how it's depicted in a lot of movies. And I will say that and where you talk about having to tell your boys, both of those instances, I got choked up reading the book for 100%. Was there an element of when that's taking place that you almost feel like you're outside of your own body looking in, or what was that experience like to the best of your recollection?
It wasn't like I was outside my body looking in. It felt like, those times where your whole face is almost numb and everything is just I don't know how to explain it. Not numb, but I can't. It's because you're in shock. So I remember when they first told me, I almost felt like if they didn't tell me, they just because when I opened the door, it was like, I already know. That would have been easier just to shut the door. Yeah. But as they read the words to me, it just felt like each word had the weight of a brick. Like it just was coming at me and just knocking me out, And so by the time it was confirmed, I literally, even though I'd had all these premonitions, I remember distinctively going into shock. And I couldn't move, I couldn't think, I remember staring at the wall for 12 hours just drinking water. And that was it. I couldn't respond to anyone. And that's why I didn't tell the kids that night. They were asleep and I couldn't cope. I couldn't sleep. And the next morning I just pretended like everything was fine because I needed people there and I needed to have enough time to know how to cope and tell them. Yeah. And by the time I told them, it wasn't an out-of-body type experience, but it was like a hyper-awake, aware experience that made it twice as awful. I imagine maybe, I mean, I've never been in battle, but when you're in battle and your senses are all keyed up and you're responding, and that's all you're doing.
Yeah,
and
it's afterward that's...
yeah, and so as I'm telling the kids, it's just, my father-in-law says, do you want me to tell them? And it's just, no, this is my job. It felt very like I had to fight for everything.
I can empathize and 100% understand. In the book you say, yeah, I do want you to tell them, but no, I need to do it. I can certainly relate to that. Like it would be way better if I didn't have to do this, but it's my job. And again, it's just something that as I was reading it, I was like, I really respected you doing that, because I agree, and that has to come from you.
I couldn't. I thought the hate and the anger that's going to come from them, that should never be put on Henry, on their grandpa. Because he just lost his son, and that's horrible. He shouldn't have to tell his grandkids something like that. That's my job.
And again, in reading both of those parts, especially the telling the kids, as a dad, just reading that really punched me in the stomach for sure. But again, I respect the hell out of you being the one to do it. I saw or read and found kind of a recurring theme throughout the book that again I found very admirable and honorable, which is the strength that you pulled from Brian in terms of, well, how would he want me to handle this type of mentality of what would he do, or how would he want me to act. And that's one thing that I am very adamant about when whether it's a ton of friends that I've lost or teammates of mine that we've collectively lost the same friends and they're having a real hard time with it. And this is advice I give to a lot of people that write into the show and ask, hey, I just lost so-and-so, how do you deal with it? You've been through a lot of that kind of stuff. And to me, I always look at it that exact same way, frankly, is that, I put myself in their shoes and say, if it were me that was gone and they were moping and feeling sorry and whatever, like I would want to reach through the afterlife and slap the shit out of them. Right. And say, hey, like you're still here, you got a job to do, we've got kids, or whatever it is. I'm gone, you're not. Don't waste that opportunity on feeling bad for me or for yourself or whatever. And I think that's important, because I know that's how I feel. I wouldn't want people to mope and feel like their lives are over because I'm gone. I would want the exact opposite, and them to appreciate the fact that they're still here and that there's a job to do and what have you. But one of the excerpts that I wanted to read that I just thought was really awesome, the way that you penned it in terms of the aftermath and kind of how you were handling it, is words that you said that you repeated. You state, I repeated in my head the thoughts that had kept me going since the beginning of October. I am heartbroken, but I am not broken. I will face this with fury and let every ounce of it hit me full force and dare it to break me. I've heard it said that you marry your equal. If that's true, I'm a beast, a force to be reckoned with. I will do Brian proud. This is my mantra. I will take deep breaths, hold my children close, and handle things. I will not be another victim of the men who took my husband's life and those of his fellow soldiers. Those men were left in a desert without a choice, but I have a choice. My children and I will not be further victims of this tragedy. We will be victors.